Hi everyone, it's Alicia Henty here. Welcome to our Wellness TV. Today our Zoom meeting is about mindful meditation. And just to remind you, you have a reminder about your wellness credit points right here on the screen. So just send us some information and we'll get you your points for today. And let's move forward. Today's topic is called Mindful Meditation for the Heart, Brain, and Spirit. Some of you have heard me do this presentation, and each time I do it, I do some things slightly differently, so hopefully you'll get something else out of it as well today. Excuse me. Just wanted to talk about our objectives. I'm going to spend just a few minutes on the science, and we're going to do some practice and hopefully have some fun, and then just remind you some of the tools that we learned today, how to use them in your own practice. So before we get started, I'd like us all to just take a moment to be completely present and hopefully turn down any distractions that you have, such as your phone or your computer or other things. That's what the whole point of this presentation is about today, is having the opportunity to just be in the present moment, experience, and have just some quiet time to not really worry or think about things in our past or something that may be coming up, and just to experience that present moment. So let's just take a few deep breaths, and just remember, when we do these breathing techniques, Nick has also spoken about them in his meditation, and Quran has spoken about them. You want to take the breaths from your belly. So you put your hands on your abdomen and take a deep breath in. And as you exhale through your mouth or through your nose, whichever is more comfortable with you, you really you want to contract your abdomen in, so you really get that breath pushed out as well as you can, all the oxygen out of your lungs. And I'm going to just check the chat and make sure there's nobody asking questions before I get started. Oh, good. Thank you. So, just to begin, I'd like to mention a little bit about the science behind meditation and what it does to your brain. And this was a study which was a meta-analysis of a bunch of different studies regarding the different types of mindful meditation. And there was just 3 different models that they used to study in this meta-analysis. And they studied brain activity. And so what the results are just basically telling us that there's thickness in the brain that correlates with attention. When you find yourself a little stressed, which is kind of how I was a little bit this morning, I have a lot of things going on personally, and then we're busy here at work. Your attention span and remembering things gets kind of lost. I know I was trying to remember the password on my voicemail to check it this morning, and I kept putting in the wrong number, and I realized I was just so kind of wound up and distracted and thinking about all the things I needed to take care of today. I just didn't take that moment to just stop and bring my attention back to the present moment. And then just to let you know, these other models, in terms of the affect model, is for areas of the brain that help with your emotions, like your empathy. And then the perspective model was linked to changes in the brain regarding the mental state of others and the perspective of oneself. So that's kind of like the mindfulness part of it, as well as when you think of the mental state of others, you think of the ability to have the high level of emotional intelligence, and then also have some awareness of yourself and what's going on with you. And then there's just some additional studies regarding meditation and blood pressure. So we just saw that it helps your brain and helps certain areas of your brain. These two studies were done. Again, that first one was a blood pressure meta-analysis, and it was done, and I'm going to have the notes regarding the results of that one. It was a transcendental meditation, and it was shown to reduce both systolic and diastolic blood pressure, and they were meaningful, clinically meaningful changes in people for this particular study. And then there was another study noted there, the brief mindfulness meditation on anxiety. And so what we found in that study was that the nursing students were able to reduce their anxiety symptoms, as well as lower their systolic blood pressure. So individuals with some moderate anxiety are showing in these studies to benefit from some short-term meditation. So just to let you know, it's this concept of mindfulness and meditation. It obviously has been around for thousands of years, but the research tells us it actually makes physical changes in our body and in our brain. So we just talked about breathing. One of the easiest ways we can go about doing some meditation and becoming more mindful is just to stop what we're doing, let go of our distractions, and just do some deep breathing. And just to let you know what the science is behind deep breathing and how it impacts us. So when we're stressed, we take shallow breaths and we're breathing from, up here versus down on our diaphragm. And that kind of, our own short breathing signals our own nervous system to kind of be in the stress response. So when we get a little stressed, we do start more of the shallow breathing, but if we can stop and take the deep breaths, then it does change our nervous system. And that's really what we're learning, the gist of what we're learning and what we're doing today. It's just a way to kind of just get in touch with our own nervous system and calm it down. And by doing these things, we can do that. And so the science of the diaphragmatic breath, which we did, the deep breathing, where you breathe deeply, you let your belly expand, that signals the parasympathetic relaxation response of your autonomic nervous system. And the other thing it does, it stimulates the vagus nerve. And the vagus nerve is a nerve that runs, without going into a lot of detail, and many of you that might be clinicians on here know this, it's also known as the 10th cranial nerve. And it kind of goes from back here all the way down our body and through our internal organs. So breathing stimulates that nerve that then sends kind of this calming, and then this is sort of a simplistic way to say it because of course I'm not a neuroscientist, but it sends that calming response through that vagus nerve, which hits through your brain all the way down through your internal organs. Some of us, when we're stressed, often have, a little pain in our stomach or upset stomach or maybe tightness in our jaw. And so that deep breathing will signal that, that stimulation of that nerve. And then we'll do these things which help us feel less stressed and a little more present moment. So what is mindfulness? Many of you have heard this term before. It's quite prevalent in the media now. You hear it on all different fronts. The military uses it. My friend is an attorney in South Florida, and her law firm brought in someone to practice mindful meditation with them so they could be more relaxed and focused on their law work, which I thought was quite interesting because it's a very high pressure job that she's in, and she even had it there. So mindfulness, there's lots of definitions, but what I like to do is just kind of probe you for some questions regarding mindfulness. So where do you locate your present moment experience? Or where do you experience, where does it live? Where does the present moment experience live? And so just to kind of Think about that question. And the answer, if you've all been thinking or have heard this before, the answer that I'm looking for in terms of what is mindfulness, mindfulness and where do you experience that present moment experience, and that's in your body. Because our minds, as we go throughout the day, are in the past, so we're worrying about something perhaps that happened this morning, or we're thinking about something that may happen later today or in a few weeks, anticipating stressful events, or ruminating over past events that we may feel guilt about, or worry, or anxiety, or something of that nature. So the mindfulness is really that present moment experience. And the way we can have that the best is by our body, because our body is always in the present moment. Our mind is constantly back and forth between the past, the future, and present, which is normal. We all do this. That's another key part of this whole mindfulness definition, is the non-judgmental part of it. And so here's a really good definition that we use often, and it's just being aware. So again, it's awareness of what is happening right now without wishing it were different, and enjoying the pleasant without holding on when it changes, because of course it will, and being with the unpleasant without fearing it, because it always won't be that way. So it's a way of deliberately attending, when we're mindful, we're deliberately attending to the immediate present moment experience. And this is the part that I was kind of saying earlier, the curiosity, openness, and acceptance. So when we're aware that we're scattered, distracted, and stressed, the worst thing we can do is beat ourselves up for feeling that way. When we feel that way for a reason. I mean, right now in the world, it's quite chaotic, really. I mean, in some places. And so the chaos of the world, along with us working in healthcare under unique circumstances, and then having our normal day-to-day lives with our family, our friends, it can become quite stressful. So when you practice these techniques that we're going to talk a little bit more about, remember that when you practice these things, the deep breathing or the walking meditation or whatever you choose to, if you choose to use some tools to help you, which we'll talk about those as well. When you practice and use these tools and techniques when you're not stressed, then you will have the ability to rely on them when your stress does arise. So like this morning for me, I really had to stop myself and take some deep breaths and kind of just ground myself in the present moment by putting my feet on the ground and just feeling my body in the chair and taking some breaths. And then I'm better equipped to do that when I have these moments of stress if I practice these techniques when I'm not stressed. So if you start practicing them, particularly a way would be in the evening, say when you get ready for bed. Even if you don't have trouble sleeping or falling asleep, just when you get in your bed and get everything shut down for the night and you relax, practicing this deep breathing is a good time to do it, or first thing in the morning as well when you wake up. I mean, there's nothing worse than waking up in the morning and immediately having anxiety because you're anticipating your day. That's hard, and I know we all have that. We're humans. That's part of the human condition. But then when you do, I know I had that for a while, and I was really struggling with it. Like, why am I waking up with anxiety? And so I started doing some regular routine techniques in the morning with just lying in my bed and just, noticing the physical sensations, feeling like the cool fan blowing on me, feeling the sensation of my body just lying on the bed and then doing some of that deep breathing that helped me to calm myself before I ever got going in the morning. So you can do these techniques anytime, but practice them when you're not stressed. So just to kind of summarize what we talked about, it's really mindfulness being a practice of attention, which is attention to your present moment experience and what's going on. Intention, so where you intend to bring yourself back to that, you have intention to feel what you're feeling, if you're feeling anxiety or fear or whatever it may be, but then just letting it pass and saying, okay, let me just focus on my present moment experience, what's going with me right now. Can I take some breaths? Can I perhaps stand up and do some stretching? And then also part of it is attitude. So one of the pieces about mindfulness that we can practice as well is this active listening. I'm sure in training classes, many of you have practiced this active listening. And when I teach this in person, I often do a little exercise where I pair people up with just one other person in the group, and I ask them to talk about something. I'll give them the topic, whatever it might be, and I'll ask them to have one person that speaks first and then the other person to just be a listener. And in that moment, I'm trying to train the listeners to just listen, because most of the time when we're listening to respond. And sometimes the response that we're creating in our mind may not be very positive, like, okay, I need this person to really shut up right now because I don't want to listen to them anymore. So when we have that thought and are listening to respond, even if it's in our own mind or to the person, we're not being as mindful in conversation with others. So a great way to practice this is just to listen. And when someone's talking to you, you just listen. You hear them out. You may nod or just say, yes, I hear you, and just acknowledge that you're hearing them perhaps, but not necessarily responding, because a lot of times when we're stressed and we're particularly talking with close friends or family, sometimes we just want someone to listen and maybe not help us solve our problem, but just let us vent or whatever it might be. And so that practice of active listening is a great way to be mindful as well. So what I want to do now is just move on and talk about some of the apps that you can use. We're going to do a little exercise. Let's see, we've got a few more minutes, so I'm just making sure I'm trying to be cognizant of our time today. Just wanted to remind you, and I think you've all heard of these. We've mentioned many of them several times in our presentations, but if you really want to practice this meditation and you're having difficulty or you feel like you can't do it on your own, these apps can help you. Insight Timer is one I use, but it's a little more complex. It's a lot of the meditation is for people that have already been meditating, but I understand, I haven't used Calm, but I understand it's a really good one for beginners. And Headspace is another one. And so what you do is you just you open the app. They all have free versions. You open the app and you type in, I'm anxious, or I'm having fear, or I can't sleep. And then you just type it in, and then a teacher will come up and do a meditation. You'll get to be guided through it. And sometimes you'll find you may not really connect with the teacher or their voice or their technique, but there's literally hundreds and thousands of them. And then you find one you really like, and then you just put it in your favorites, and then you use it when you need to. There's a lot of great body scan ones. So if you're one of these people that either has trouble falling asleep or wakes up in the middle of the night, and can't go back to sleep, there's a meditation technique just called your body scan, and the teacher will walk you through just scanning your body and really just focusing on the sensations in your body and relaxing them. The different, like from your feet to your head, the one I use a lot, the teacher starts out with deep breathing, relaxing, and then, thinking about relaxing from the bottom of your feet all the way to the top of your head. And it's a really great way to help either fall asleep or get back to sleep if you have trouble with sleeping. So what I want to do now is just turn off the screen for a second and practice a little brief mindful meditation. So in your seat, wherever you are, at home or at work, just sit up tall in your seat, sitting where you can feel your feet on the ground. So uncross your legs, relax your shoulders, and just, if you feel comfortable, go ahead and close your eyes. I'm going to close my eyes, so I know it'll look kind of funny, but I'm going to close my eyes while I'm teaching this, and that way I can really practice my meditation while I'm teaching it as well. So as you close your eyes, just sit here for a moment. Let's take a couple of those deep breaths where you breathe in deeply. And while you're doing those breaths, you can put your hand on your abdomen and really kind of feel the sensation of your belly expanding, and then the sensation of it contracting while you're breathing. And I found that when I do practice breathing, particularly when I'm not stressed, I kind of focus on that and really over exaggerate that movement, or try to really focus on that movement of my abdomen. And it kind of keeps you focused on your body, which we talked about earlier. So as you're doing that, just calmly sit here quietly, breathing normally now. Just put your hands on the top of your legs, the tops of your thighs as you're sitting here, and just notice the sensation, perhaps, of the material of your clothing, and if it's rough or if it's smooth. Perhaps you notice the temperature, if you're a little warm or if you're cool. And then while you sit here, just turn your left hand up open and place the middle two fingers of your right hand in the palm of your left hand. And while you're sitting here again, relaxed, slowly just begin to circle your fingertips in the palm of your hand. And while you do it, just try to keep your mind on the present moment, noticing physical sensations. So as you're sitting here, you may notice your hand feels rough or smooth, or if you work a lot in the yard, you might notice you have calluses. Or you may just have the sensation of feeling your feet on the ground or your hips in your chair. And if your mind wanders off to something you need to do later or something you're worried about, just recognize it, and then just bring yourself back to the present moment experience and the sensation. So stop circling your fingers and just let your right hand drift back down, and notice your left hand as you keep it turned up. Do you feel cool air perhaps blowing across your hand, or does it feel warm because you've been circling in it? So it's just a matter of noticing that physical sensation, and then put your left hand back down. And as you sit here listening, just being, feeling your feet on the ground, feeling your hips in the chair. Perhaps your back is feeling relaxed, or maybe it's feeling a little stiff if you've been sitting too long. This is just a simple way to practice some mindful meditation. And go ahead and slowly open your eyes. So that was just a very little simple exercise. I do it often because it's just real easy and it's easy to remember. But you can do all kinds of things. The other thing you can think of as well is that the sound of my voice, listen, I know I have a strong Southern accent, so the sound of my voice may not be calming to you. Some people, when they're trying to meditate, sounds are really important. So perhaps listening to a teacher or just turning on your own relaxing music and just sitting or lying still and doing that deep breathing, even if it's for 5 minutes or 3 minutes, it's just a very quick and easy way to bring yourself back to the present moment experience. Another good way is, I know we all feel maybe a little cooped up, particularly since before things opened up. It's just doing a walking meditation where you go outside, put away your distractions such as your phone, and just walk and do it slowly and feel your feet on the ground, feel the sunshine, the breeze, and just make a point of maybe noticing those physical sensations as well as the sounds. Perhaps you hear the cars going by. Is another great way to just do a quick meditation and get some movement and get outside. So I encourage you to practice that a little bit when you're walking outside. So I want to wrap up now because it is 12:30, but I wanted to just remind you to try these things today. So we talked about the active listening. So next time you have more than just a quick conversation with someone, try that active listening and just listen. And then focus on that attention to your breathing. So try it for even 1 to 2 minutes. Even that short little bit will help and will calm your blood pressure down, not calm it down, but it can lower your blood pressure a little bit, calm your anxiety. And then just have those times where you have the attention to that present moment with really no thoughts of the past or the future. So by doing your breathing or maybe a walking meditation, you could do that. So I thank you all so much for joining me today. And just to let you know, don't judge yourself if you can't do it. It's difficult. It's very hard, but just a few minutes of it and practicing when you're not stressed will often help you use this tool and resource when you are stressed. And I just wish you all peace and safety, and thank you so much for joining me today.